I'd first of all like to make it clear that I have great respect for Mr. Van Buitenen, both as a Member of Parliament and for the contribution which he's made in the past to increasing transparency. Nevertheless, in this area, I am convinced that he is being given misleading information by some of his sources, and that, as in the past, the Commission will be able to provide convincing answers to the questions which he has raised.
Are you then saying there are no problems at OLAF?
I think there are problems in any organisation. OLAF is a relatively young organisation. We have a particularly difficult job to do, and one which I personally tell every new member of staff joining OLAF is essential to the reputation of the European institutions. There is no job more important in the Commission than defending the reputation of the institutions and the European project, and we are all in this building absolutely committed to that objective.
Mr. Van Buitenen is making a very clear link between the structure, the overall structure of the European Union at the moment, and he's saying, well, if in that structure, that structure which is sort of half intergovernmental, half led by the Commission, he says if you have a body that is supposed to organize the fight against fraud, is supposed to investigate internal fraud, and that is failing, it shows that the whole system is not working. Are you saying the system does work?
Well, if what he says about OLAF failing were correct, clearly there would be a serious problem. But I'm saying that what he is saying about OLAF is not correct, because we are achieving significant successes, not only in the sensitive area of internal investigations, but also in areas like external aid, where our contribution is now recognized throughout the international donor community as the best of its kind, and in other traditional areas, more traditional areas, such as customs, agriculture and the structural funds. Now, were it to be the case that our processes were failing, there would clearly be a real problem. But I have seen no evidence that there is anything of significance wrong with our processes. And all the evidence, as we've shown in our annual report and in the figures we produce each month of increasing pressure brought on the criminal fraternity, I've seen no evidence that these things are in fact going wrong, and much to the contrary. We are each year doing a better job, and I expect that to continue.
Mr. Van Buitenen acknowledges that you're doing a good job in general terms, but he says where the problem is in the area of internal investigations. What is the current procedure for investigating a possible case that also involves OLAF staff? Well,
if there were a case which involved OLAF staff, we would isolate that individual completely from the proceedings, make sure there was no conflict of interest in any kind involving investigation, and handle it in a particularly sensitive and confidential manner. That is, as I say, a hypothetical question. Mr. Van Buitenen has made allegations about the head of the Internal Investigations Unit, which I have explained to Mr. Van Buitenen myself are incorrect. The allegations suggest that this man had a conflict of interest in an internal appointments procedure. I can confirm that I had informed the individual concerned that his candidacy had been rejected before the individual became aware of the facts which have led Mr. Van Buitenen to make this suggestion. So I would like to take this opportunity to make it clear that I am quite convinced that there was no question of even a potential conflict of interest insofar as that colleague of mine was concerned.
Have there ever been any internal investigations at OLAF?
There have, yes.
And what has been the result of those?
They have been handled in the normal way, and we have gone out of our way to make sure that the procedures were respected and that the other organs of the Commission who were interested in this were informed. But I'm afraid in order to protect the identity of the individuals concerned, I can't go into any detail.
And Mr. Van Buitenen also raises the Hercule program.
Yes.
Can you very briefly describe what this program is about?
Well, the Hercule program is about using community funds to help law enforcement agencies of member states acquire technical equipment which is useful in this work. It is also, there are other activities which are not relevant to what Mr. Van Buitenen is suggesting.
It basically helps support member states in developing the
It helps support member states in developing their activities, particularly in the customs area, border controls, matters of this kind. And OLAF manages some of this money. The money is managed not by the investigators, but by the support directorate, Directorate C, which has specialists for this purpose.
It appears that there were some issues, some questions raised
Yes.
about the Hercule program in Cyprus. Is that correct?
That is correct. The OLAF staff who are financial managers and auditors of this program reached the view that there was a suspiciously high price had been paid for some of the equipment in Cyprus. The documentation was in order, but they felt there was something wrong with the transaction. They immediately drew this to my attention in my previous capacity as their director, and I spoke to the Director General. We immediately drew this to the attention of the special anti-corruption authorities within the Cyprus law enforcement establishment. We maintained a dialogue with them. We ensured that no community funds were lost, so there was no loss to the budget. In due course, the Cyprus authorities informed us that there was sufficient information to suggest that possibly fraud had taken place, and OLAF investigators are now assisting the Cyprus authorities in this work. You'll understand that we have no power whatsoever to investigate within a member state law enforcement agency. There has been a suggestion that OLAF is investigating its own staff in relation to this matter. I would like to make it quite clear that there is no investigation into OLAF staff relating to this. There never has been such an investigation, and nobody has come to us with any information suggesting that such an investigation might be appropriate.
You're saying then it is not true that on a single flight going out to Nicosia, both OLAF investigators and both OLAF staff that were being investigated were traveling together?
That cannot be true because no OLAF staff are being investigated. What is true is that that flight contained OLAF staff who were investigators and OLAF staff who were responsible for financial management. And I can also reveal to you that that flight included a Greek-speaking member of staff whose normal job was something quite different, but when we operate in member states whose language is not widely spoken among our staff, that is the sort of thing we have to do.
So various type of OLAF staff were on that flight?
Absolutely.
Were they traveling together? Or were
they were traveling together because they were all working together on this important and sensitive issue, yes. But none of the staff were being investigated because we are not investigating any of our staff in relation to this matter, and we have no reason to believe we should be.
But I'm sure you understand then that that raises the issue that Mr. Van Buitenen is raising, that there is no separation between the investigators and the people being investigated.
It's an important and, well, no, I would say again that our staff are not being investigated. There is a partnership between OLAF investigators and OLAF financial managers in dealing with this issue. But the point I would make here is that wherever OLAF works in partnership with other Commission services, such working partnerships exist. When we operate in Africa or in, say, the research area of community expenditure, we will always do so in cooperation with the other Commission services for whom we are effectively providing a service, because we can't and don't want to operate in isolation. So on this occasion, quite exceptionally, the service involved in the financial management, which was providing the auditors who were working with OLAF, was another directorate of OLAF. This has happened, to my knowledge, once. It has happened many hundred times with other Commission Directorates General. Now, the question of principle, which Mr. Van Buitenen raises, should OLAF be responsible for spending money, is a legitimate question of public interest, which has also been discussed by the Court of Auditors. And it would, of course, be possible to arrange things so that OLAF didn't spend any public money. The Commission's view up to now has been that the synergy, the added value from having OLAF specialists involved in decisions about how to spend public money on sensitive and difficult technical tasks, the balance of interest has been in keeping this within OLAF because it's a way of ensuring that the money is spent well. I agree absolutely that questions of division of responsibility can occur. We believe we are managing them properly, but I would respect the contra view. But what I cannot accept is that this has led to any mismanagement, still less to any fraud by OLAF staff.
You're saying you're working according to the procedure that has been set out?
That is right. We're working in the same way as we would work with other Directorates General, and we are following procedures, yes. I agree that this is an exceptional case, but it's exceptional cases which cause the difficulty in any kind of government activity.
Now, in general terms, and the fact that the Hercule program exists acknowledges that there is a lack of expertise maybe at national member state levels when it comes to fighting fraud with European funds. Do you think public prosecutors or investigators at national level are indeed not sufficiently informed about the type of frauds that you are also investigating?
Well, that's a very interesting and important question, and the picture varies greatly, not only between member states, but also within member states. We could find that we have an excellent relationship, for example, in my own country with the City of London Police. But I strongly suspect that if we went to, shall I say, one of the more rural Scottish areas and spoke to the man in charge of fraud investigations, he might well not have heard of OLAF. And this is an important task for us, is to make ourselves better known, among other things, through the careful use of the money which we are given to promote our image. Yes, that's right. As far as the technical expertise is concerned, we do have technical expertise within this building recruited from national police forces and customs forces, and these are the very people whose technical flair, if you like, enable them to identify something wrong in Cyprus, apparently, even though an auditor might well have concluded that the documentation was correct.
Does that mean that maybe then there should be the structure of EU fraud fighting should be strengthened in the European Union?
Well, the Commission has a whole programme of policies designed to that end, and I've been in this service, OLAF, for 6 years now in 2 different jobs. Before that, I was watching these matters from the relative safety of the British Finance Ministry. Enormous progress has been made since the mid-1990s, but there remains a great deal to be done. Now, I do not believe, and I think my senior colleagues here have the same view, that fraud is more serious or worse within the institutions and within the European budget than in comparable risk areas of national governments, national states. But it is obvious, and here I would pay tribute to the contribution which Mr. Van Buitenen has himself made to this debate, that the political perception, the political risk of fraud in the institutions is much greater than it is in national states, because we find here, we noticed this earlier this year when we worked with the Belgian police on alleged fraud in relation to procurement within the institutions, that the political reaction was very much greater than it would have been in any of our member states, whether yours or mine or the more southerly member states, sometimes wrongly associated with a higher risk of fraud. So we are all, as I said at the beginning, very conscious of the importance of our role in this area in defending and raising the reputation of the institutions. And we feel that we work well with the Parliament, the Budgetary Control Committee, in this area. We have a good confidential dialogue with them, and we would like to continue in this positive spirit.
Do you feel a lot has changed in the last few years at OLAF? There's been quite a tumultuous period, the raids on the offices of Hans-Martin Tillak, for example. How have things changed at OLAF?
Well, the first thing that's changed is that we have 4 times as many people as we did 7 years ago, and in many cases much more qualified. The second is that we've moved into the difficult area of policing. We're not a police force, of course, but police type activity within the institutions, and of defending community expenditure, whereas in the past a lot of this work was really left to the revenue side, to the customs area. One interesting statistic is that 5 years ago we had 2 people working in fraud in the external aid budget. You may know that the European Union is the biggest giver of aid in the world. We now have more than 20 people working in that unit. I could show similar figures for other areas. Now, there have been some high-profile cases. I was personally not involved in those cases, so I can say what I'm going to say in full conscience. If my colleagues who took the decisions they took in those cases had preferred to remain silent, not do anything, their life and Olaf's life would have been very much easier. But they would have betrayed the fundamental principle that when we receive information which suggests that a serious offence may have taken place, it is our job to deal with that information in the interests of justice and transparency, rather than in the way which might be, in the short term at least, politically the most correct way to follow. So you mentioned one particular incident. There hasn't been another one like it. Difficult cases, as they say, make difficult law, but they can't be avoided.
But you're saying a case like was the case with Hans Martin Tillak cannot be repeated?
I'm not saying that at all. I'm saying that it has not happened since. It may well happen again. If it does, we will deal with it appropriately. What I am saying is it's quite exceptional. It's not the sort of work we usually have to do.
Okay, thank you very much. Is there anything else you would like to say?
I'd just like to say one thing in relation to some of the comments which have been made about appointment procedures. And that is that in any personnel selection procedure, there will be differences of view sometimes within the selection committees about the merits of individual candidates. There may even be gossip in the corridors about one or two decisions which are subsequently taken. But the fact that there may have been a difference of view does not mean that there's been an irregularity or that the wrong appointment has been made, still less that there's been any sort of corruption or misconduct by anybody. And our procedures are designed to recruit the specialist staff we need with the experience which we require. And the selection procedures involve always Commission officials from outside OLAF representing the management, but also in equal numbers representing the staff associations. So nobody is put on an OLAF selection list without going through these procedures, unless of course they're already Commission officials and can be brought in sideways if you like. And on no occasion has the record, on no occasion has the report of the selection procedures contained any disclaimer about the merits of any individuals put on the recruitment lists. I'd just like to make that as a general comment. Thank you.